gang, we're back with our fourth assessment for English, which also makes this the fourth episode of Pinoy Talks. We're going to be talking about One Night the Moon and how language shows us who we are and shapes how we see the world.
We're back with yet another assessment that isn't going to help us one tiny bit in the future, but despite that, we're still very excited to dive into this film for our language, identity, and culture module assessment.
Okay, but before we get into our assessment, let's quickly recap what happened in the movie, One Night the Moon. Basically, it's a story about a young girl named Emily who gets lost in the Australian outback, searching for and trying to reach the moon.
It's also about two different worlds coming together. You've got Jim, the typical white father, who's very stuck in his ways. He refuses to let Albert, an indigenous tracker, help search for his lost daughter. This shows how back then people were much more blatantly racist and how white people believed that they were superior and higher beings compared to the indigenous.
Because of Jim's way of thinking, he believes that he can find his daughter on his own and completely neglects the help of Albert, despite the fact he was labeled as the best bush tracker of the bunch. But Albert knows the land way better, like he's lived there his whole life. Sadly, because of Jim's stubbornness, and maybe he was scared of Albert being right, leads to his daughter's death.
So the film is a powerful story about racism, how different cultures see things, and what happens when people are too stubborn to understand each other. It shows how being close-minded can lead to bad things.
Also, don't forget, the dude shotguns himself at the end, but that's all his fault. The guy was low-key a loser anyways. This tragic end shows how people who are stuck in their ways can destroy themselves.
Okay, so as you know, language shows who we are. Like your slang is different from your parents, right? That's because language is linked to your background. In the movie, Jim and Albert talk differently, showing their different backgrounds. This demonstrates how their language directly reflects their cultural identities and the groups they belong to.
Oh yeah, we talk way differently than our parents. I think it's the age gap. Anyways, the other big thing is how language changes how we see things. Like if someone tells you a place is dangerous, you see it differently than if they say it's safe. In the movie, Jim and Albert see the land as totally different ways, and their language shows us why. This illustrates how their differing language and cultural understanding shape their perception of the land and consequently how they interact with it.
The big problem in the movie is about the land. Jim sees it as something to be owned, which he does legally because he signed it on the dotted line. This reflects Jim's European perspective on land ownership. It's a key part of his identity, showing us how language reflects who he is and how he sees the world.
Basically the land was stolen from Albert's people. Albert sees it as a sacred...
As something sacred.
Oh shit. Basically the land was stolen from Albert's people. Albert sees it as something sacred, connected to his culture. It's not just dirt to him, it's kind of like a spiritual connection. This shows how Albert's cultural background shapes how he sees the land, which is deeply tied to his indigenous identity.
Jim uses words like my land and mine, showing that he thinks he owns it. This possessive language reflects his European worldview and his belief in individual ownership, directly influencing how he interacts with the land and with Albert, as his language dictates his actions.
Oh yeah, that one song where they sing, "This land is mine," the loss of culture and connection to the land. This silence is a form of non-verbal language, reflect the historical silencing of Aboriginal voices and the disruption of their connection to their land. This demonstrates how the absence of verbal language shapes our perception of Albert's experience.
So you can see how their different backgrounds and perspectives on land ownership are shown through their language, both verbal and non-verbal. This clearly illustrates how language, in its various forms, reflects their identities and shapes their interactions.
Yeah, and it really affects how they act towards each other and how the whole story plays out. Their differing perceptions, shaped by language, dictate their actions and drive the tragic narrative.
It's like how Jim's language makes him blind to Albert's knowledge, and that leads to his daughter's death. This shows how Jim's language influenced perception directly impacts his choices and the tragic outcome.
Exactly. Albert's silence, while powerful, also shows the limitations placed on him by society that doesn't value his voice. This highlights how societal language and the power of structures affect Albert's ability to interact and influence the situation.
You know what makes this movie so good?
What?
It's how they tell the story. It's not just talking. It uses visuals, like those awesome shots of the outback. They won't show you what it's really like to live out there, all alone.
Now, low-key, the movie was kinda ass, not gonna lie. The quality was bad, the plot was pretty boring. I almost slept through the whole movie. But for a movie, everything matched pretty well. The music and angle positions were used in proper time. For example, the far shot of the daughter and the mother on the bed singing the moon song, and then changing angles to the father when he walks in. It builds some sort of suspense towards the movie. There was also a wide shot of Jim showing the loneliness and isolation. This made you feel kinda sorry for him even though he was a jerk.
And there wasn't much dialogue, making the words they do say more powerful. It makes us pay attention to the silence moments as well.
Yeah, they weren't really doing anything but singing in the room with their daughter. But the camera angles made it look important to the story, which it was. But the daughter is kinda stupid, because why did Bo try reaching for the moon? Her action of reaching for the moon shows she was young and didn't know any better. In the movie, Jim says no blacks on my land. That was a crazy moment, because ain't no way bro said that. If he said that in today's era, we would have got stabbed. Anyways, the word no was very serious. The dude was not playing around. This shows how racist Jim was, and how he wanted to be in charge, even though he was told Albert was the best tracker. He didn't accept him because he was indigenous. And then, with Albert's silence, he doesn't argue. The silence is a powerful symbol of him being treated unfairly, like he doesn't matter. It lets us see how bad things were. Indigenous people. He didn't get to have any say in anything.
Jim's words make him seem powerful, but also like a total jerk. It makes you feel angry at him, as he's always trying to show that he's the boss.
And because of Albert's silence, it makes you feel sad and angry too, but in a different way. It shows us how much they've lost and how unfair it was. It's sad how Jim treated him, but Albert was cool about it.
The language makes us feel different things and helps us understand the characters. It shows how words can be used to control people. This control is used to show who's in charge and how people of color were treated back then. The language creates different emotions and helps us understand the characters. It shows how language can be used to control.
Personally, I think this was a good way to explain indigenous people's point of view and how they were treated on an emotional level. In conclusion, One Night the Moon shows us language is more than words. It tells us how people are and how they see the world.
It's also a way to connect and understand others. By looking at Jim and Albert's language, we see the clash of cultures and the impact of racism.
I believe that this movie was a good way to explain and put us into the shoes of indigenous people.
It's Miggy and AJ signing off. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Bye-bye.
This line, all the way to the ocean's line. Every break of day, I'm working hard just to make it pay. This line, yeah, I signed it on the dotted line.